Hi, Armored Pants here, and I have another review for you in the Russian line. This is the Tier 10 Heavy, the IS-7, and as always we have a complete guide for you. We will firstly look at the tech spec in detail, and we will do that using blitzhanger.com, which is a great asset and all blitzers should be using it. Now, I really like this tank, I have to say. It's a tough Tier 10 competitor. It's a heavy tank but medium tank speed. We're going to look at that in a second. Has a 130mm gun with a good reload. It does nice alpha damage too. That 10.68 second reload, just under 10.7 seconds, is going to give you 450 to 500 alpha rolls each time, which is nice. And you know, it has decent gun handling too for a Russian tank. Now, one of the things about it is that the muzzle velocity is quite low. It's only 900 meters per second, so you need to use supercharge, and even with supercharge it's only 1170, so it's still pretty low. If you compare it to, let's say, a Russian medium like a T62A, which has almost 2000 meters per second muzzle velocity. Why is muzzle velocity important? Because muzzle velocity in the formula for shell penetration is squared, and therefore has an exponentially more positive effect on you possibly penetrating. Now, we looked here at the speed. It was 50 kilometers an hour. Now, that is the same top speed as a T62A. Just think about that. The speed of this tank for a heavy tank is incredible. It does 15 kilometers backwards as well. Now, obviously it doesn't accelerate as well as a T62A, but its top speed is nonetheless the same. It has really good armor. If you look at the armor profile here, you can see that you can side scrape in this tank. If you look on the top left hand side of your screen, you're going to see those relative armor numbers along the side. If we take a side scraping position here in the tank, you look at those numbers along the side, look at those numbers along the turret. This is a side scraping monster. It also has spaced armor on the sides, which gives you protection against HE and heat. If you look there, HE and heat will not go through the spaced armor and do maximum damage. Now, I wanted to take a look at the weak points of the tank, because this tank is extremely vulnerable to being ammo-wrecked. If we look at the back of the turret, on the bottom side, you will see, and this is on both sides by the way, the ammo rack. And the ammo rack is very easily detonated on this tank by a big gun. And because you're Tier 10, you're facing the biggest guns in the game. Grill, Death Star, Yagaru, big Soviet TDs, you know, but even your own peers with a 130mm gun can ammo rack you. So you need to be very careful. You need to know where the big guns are, and you need to be aware of where they are vis-a-vis your side of the bottom side of your turret, and try to protect yourself. Don't drive out in front of a Yagaru, for example. Get a 180mm round through that turret, because he's possibly going to ammo rack you. There are other vulnerable spots, as you saw. One of the key ones is the drive wheel here in the front of the tank. This is very vulnerable. If you remember the Batchat review we did, I actually targeted an IS-7 here using the Batchat, and I do massive damage. I think I do about 1600 alpha on him with a couple of rounds, because it really goes through the drive wheel and does an awful lot of damage, so be aware of that too. So this tank is not omnipotent, it has weak points. Looking at the back of the tank, it's also vulnerable, but then that's what you expect. Most tanks are vulnerable at the back, but you can reverse side scrape in this tank if you can hide your butt, and you'll have a look at that in a second. Be careful driving downhill on this tank. Look at this. If you're driving downhill or uphill, you are extremely vulnerable on the top of your turret and on the back of the tank. And as we said, there's big guns out there. They're usually in elevated sniping positions, so if you don't know where they are, drive out, you can be seriously damaged and maybe even one-shotted. So be aware where those big guns are in this tank. It's as important as it is with a light tank to know where those big guns are. You need to reverse. You can reverse side scrape in this tank if you can hide your butt. As you can see there, the relative armor angles are good. Now, looking at the tank front on, you can see if you're against Tier 9s, it's fantastic. Against Tier 10s, it's still pretty good, right? Now, you can play this tank as a standard heavy. If you remember the heavy tank guide we have on this channel, you can go seize those strategic positions. You can anchor the enemy, lock them in at those strategic positions. This tank has the armor to do that. Plus, because you're so fast, you can usually get there before other heavies. I mean, just think about how fast this tank is compared to an E100, for example. You also, as an alternative, can go and support your meds and lights, because you can keep pace with them. At 50 kilometers an hour, you can easily keep pace with any med tank in tier 10, and you can actually keep pace with many of the light tanks too. So you can go and support them, and if you turn up on the flank supporting your meds and lights, it's really going to surprise the enemy. And that's a tactic which is open to you in this heavy tank, which is maybe a heavium, cross between a heavy and a medium, which is not open to you, let's say, in an E100, as we discussed before. So there's no way he's going to get there in time, but you can, and putting that extra gun on the flank can make all the difference. So that's a tactic that you to be aware of and to think about. Now let's roll. We're going to have a look at a supremacy game on Faust, and as always, the first thing to do, regardless of tank or tier, is check the setup. So I've checked it, and I've decided that I am going to use my speed to go and seize D quickly, and then try to move up on the right hand side of the map to engage the enemy heavies. As this is a supremacy games are about capping, and all too often I've seen in this map heavies drive past D to go up on the flank. They don't capture D, and they're at a huge points disadvantage later on in the game. So I decide cap D, go into a safe position here where I'm side scraping onto the enemy, which are over at C. So even if they fire some shots over, they should bounce off my side and my turret. As we remember from looking at the tech spec, I have really good side scraping relative numbers on my armor. And there we go. We see 2 bounces off the armor in front of my tank. So now when they're reloading, I can push on. Now this E100, I know he has a 15-second reload, so effectively I have a free shot on him. He can't hit me. Take my time, put a nice 500 alpha roll into that vulnerable bottom lower plate on the E100. If you remember the E100 review that we did on channel, that is an extremely vulnerable part of that tank. Another nice shot there. You can see the muzzle velocity in action, and the short range there really just goes straight through the bottom of the E100. Now I fluff this shot. He gets lucky there. He gets a bounce. He just moves his turret at the right time, or the wrong time for me. Now I'm going to watch this E100. Watching, patience. Now I get another free shot here. Why? Because I see him fire. He has 15-second reload, and just see how agile this tank is. I come out, go around him more or less like a medium tank. I can pick my shot and just put one nice round into the side of the turret. Game over for him. Cleared first tank of the game for me. Now again, see how agile and mobile this tank is for a heavy. If you compare it to the E100, obviously it doesn't have quite the same armor profile, but in terms of mobility, it just leaves it sitting. The E100 is effectively, let's say, the zenith of World War II technology, and the IS-7 is effectively the start of Cold War technology. So you can see the difference in the mobility, the agility, and you can see the different theatres of war that it would have been designed for. The IS-7 designed for sweeping across Western Europe at a fast pace, engaging NATO forces. Now you can see there, up against the T-95 from the back, he doesn't really have a chance. Again, look how fast I am. Look how fast I can get around the map. You know, this is almost like medium tank agility and speed. Now this game, by the way, seems like it's fairly straightforward, and you saw one of the Reds there saying good game, but in actuality it's not, because my team members that are left actually don't really know what they're doing, and I more or less effectively now have to gauge the IS-4 which is left and the Grill on my own. I more or less have to take them out on my own. I really don't know what the rest of my team are doing. If you look at them around the map here, they are hovering around my location, but they don't seem to be doing any engagement whatsoever. So you can see I'm left to engage this IS-4 on my own. I take 2 hits from him. The IS-4 actually knows what he's doing. He's picking his spot on the vulnerable lower plate. My vulnerable lower plate. I can't really get a chance to side scrape. I'm trying to angle up to him, but I keep getting hit. I'm not able to get an acute enough angle onto him. But actually, because I actually had more hit points coming, I'm able to clear him. But he did some damage to me, and nobody has engaged this Grill here either. So this Grill has full hit points, and he's coming after me, and I am quite vulnerable now. Now he bounces one off me there, so I know he's reloading. So I have a chance to push up while he reloads. Again, my allies are not engaging. I don't really know what they're doing, to be honest. They didn't really give me much help at all, and they've made a situation which should have been an easy win. They've actually made it into a really tough brawl for me at the end here. This Grill, by the way, was a decent player, and he actually finished top on his own team. Now I am using the agility of my tank. I'm moving back, and I'm going to angle up as he fires, and I'm going to try to get another bounce. I've also reloaded so I can put one into him, which I do, and then he gets another bounce off me. Just see here, and this is what I mean about the armor in this tank. As I'm moving back, I'm creating an angle, and I get that bounce. I reload, and I'm able to put another one into him, which I do now, and then I decide to push up. I am going to try to push onto him. And if you look at the angle of his gun now, he doesn't have a shot on me. He bounces again off the side of my tank, either off the turret or off the side armor, and then we're able to clear him off. But actually, as you can see, this should have been a pretty straightforward game, but actually in the end turned out to be a pretty difficult brawl for me. But nonetheless, a good game. Almost 4.5k of damage, almost 1.4k of XP, mastery badge delivered, 3 kills. And as we always say, mastery badges are about XP, not about damage, because I have played games in this route on almost 6k damage and not received a mastery badge, but then I didn't get the same XP. Almost, as I said, almost 1.4k of XP delivers the mastery badge there. Have a look, the damage we did, the E100, T95, the IS-4 and the Grill at the end. Looking at the Grill, by the way, I checked his stats afterwards. I think he was about a 48% win rate. But you can see from the score in that game, this guy knew what he was doing. But probably the difference why he is not over in the mid-50s in his win rate is because of his decision making when he's under pressure. If he had gone for HE rounds instead of AP rounds when firing at me, he would have taken approximately 300 hit points off me each time. Just have a look at him there, as you can see. Also a very experienced player. But that's the difference between a good player and a really excellent player. As you can see, he obviously knows what he's doing. I gave him a worthy opponent. He did a big carry for his team. But that final decision making when you're under pressure, if he had gone for just safe HE rounds, taking damage off me, instead of going for the AP rounds, the big alpha rolls, he probably would have won that game and maybe got a mastery badge himself. Anyway, let's have a recap. It's a good heavy tank, excellent armor profile. Look at the heavy tank guide and use heavy tank basic tactics, because you can do it in this tank. And it's a tough competitor. It can side scrape front and back, especially if you can hide your butt on the back. And of course, it can also play as a medium or medium support tank. That 50 km/h top speed is awesome. As I said, it's the same as a T62A. Obviously, it doesn't accelerate the same, but the top speed is the same. So always bear that in mind. 10.7 second reload, 130mm gun, does big alpha rolls, 450 to 500 each time. The tank is mobile and agile for heavy, as we discussed. You can get around the map as you saw I did in that map. If you angle up this tank, you'll get bounces. You saw those bounces off the Grill there just by angling the front. And you need to know how to side scrape in this tank though. If you can't side scrape in this tank, you need to go back and have a look at the heavy tank guide and relearn it, or if you're a bit rusty, have a look at it again. Use supercharge and refined gun, get that muzzle velocity up because it's quite low. Get it up to 1170 with supercharge, and please be aware of the weak points in this tank. This tank has several, the ammo rack being the major one. You need to know where those red big guns are in the map. Don't drive out and expose your ammo rack in front of them. Experienced players will ammo rack you and you'll get very frustrated. Now, there are different tactics possible in this game, as we saw. Check the setup and how the game unfolds as it goes on, and move accordingly. And you can move around this map, the map in this tank. It has the speed to do so. So there you go. Cheers, Mush. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And I guess all remains for me to say is pants off.